in continuing of report in Chapter 3. So I'm just Benedict M. Canedo to report it. So in Article 3.20, which is the type AC or the armored cable. So armored cable, it is a fabricated assembly of insulated conductors in flexible interlock metallic armor. So makikita natin yung itsura ng ating armored cable sa ating right side ng ating slide. So in terms of installation, for feeders and branch circuit in both exposed and concealed installations, and in cable trace masonry except in damp or wet locations. So dahil except siya sa wet location, so applicable lang siya sa dry location. And indeed in plaster finish on brick or other. So use is not permitted where subject to physical damage in damp or wet location, in voids of masonry block or tile walls where such walls are exposed or subject to excessive moisture or dampness, and also were exposed to corrosive conditions. And for the ampacity shall be determined in accordance with the section of 3.10.2.6, which is the ambient temperature correction factors. Next, in Article 3.22, the flat cable assemblies or the type FC. So flat cable assemblies, an assembly of parallel conductors formed integrally with the insulating material web, specifically designed for field installation in surface metal raceway. So in terms of installation, so as a branch circuit to supply suitable tap device for lighting, small appliances, or small power loads, the rating of the branch circuit shall not exceed 30 amperes. And also were installed for exposed work. So in terms and location, with they will not subjected to physical damage where a flat cable assembly is installed less than 2,500 mm above the floor or fixed working platform. So it shall be protected by the cover identified for the use. So for the use is not permitted naman, so we're exposed to corrosion condition unless suitable for application, and in houseway or an elevator or escalator, and also in hazardous location except as specifically permitted by other article in this code. So here's are the picture of our flat cable. So for securing and supporting naman, so flat cable assembly shall be supported by means of the special design features within the surface metal raceway. So the surface metal raceway shall be support as required for the specific raceway for the, to be installed. So in terms of construction and in construction specification, so in construction, so flat cable assembly shall consist of 2, 3, 4, or 5 conductors. So in conductors, flat cable assembly shall have conductor of 5.5 mm squared or the diameter of 2.6 mm, special stranded copper wires. So for insulation naman, the entire flat cable assembly shall be formed to provide a suitable insulation covering all the conductors in using of the materials recognized in Table 3.10.3.1a for the general branch circuit wiring. Next, in Article 3.24, which is the flat conductor cable or the type FCC. So for the scope, so it covers a field installed wiring system for branch circuit incorporating type FCC cable and associated accessories as defined by the article. So the wiring system is designed for installation under the carpet squares. So The definition of flat conductor cable, so it is bottom shield, cable conductor, FCC system, is also insulating end, metal shield connections, top shield, and type FCC cable. So in terms of uses permitted, so it is used to branch circuit in branch circuit ratings, including voltage and current, in floor, walls, dam location, heating floors, and system height. So in Article 3.26, which is the integrated gas spacer cable, or the type IGS. So IGS, it is a factor assembly of one or more conductors, each individually insulated and enclosed in a loose fit non-metallic flexible conduit as an integrated gas spacer cable rated 0 through 600 volt. So yung tsura ng ating type IGS na makikita natin sa right side ng ating slide, and yung kanyang mga components. So pagdating naman sa uses permitted niya, so it used in service entrance conductors, feeder or branch circuit conductors, service conductors, underground. So uses not permitted, it shall not be used as interior wiring or be exposed in contact with buildings. So here's are the table in showing in minimum radius of bends, capacity or type IGS cable, the paper spacer thickness, and the conduit dimension, which show the size, amperes, and the thickness. Next, in Article 3.28, which is the medium voltage cable, or the type MV. So medium voltage cable, it is a single or multi-conductor solid dielectric insulated cable rated 2001 volt or higher. So makikita na natin sa right slide ulit na ating slide yung itsura ng ating type MV or the medium voltage cable. So in terms of use permitted naman, so permitted for use on power rated up including 35,000 volt nominal. So as follow, so in wet or dry location and in a raceway. So in terms of uses not permitted, so it shall not be used where exposed to direct sunlight unless identified for the use. In terms of installation, the type MV cable shall be installed, terminate, and tested by the qualified person only. So for the ampacity shall be determined in accordance with the section of 3.10.2.51 is the type of the MV cable installed in the tray, so shall be determined in accordance with the section of 3.92.2.71b. Next, in Article 3.30, which is the metal clad cable or the type MC. A metal clad cable, it is a factor assembly of one or more insulated circuit conductors with or without optical fiber members enclosed in an armor or interlocking metal tape, or a smooth or corrugated metallic sheet. So makikita natin yung itsura ng ating type ng MC or the metallic clad cable. So for uses permitted, for general uses, it is used for services, feeders, and branch circuit, for lightning, power, control, and signal circuit, indoors or outdoors, expose or conceal, in cable tray were identified for such use in any raceway and in dry location and embedded in plaster finish on brick or other masonry except damp or wet location. So for the ampacity of the type MC, in accordance with the section of 3.10.2.6 or the 3.10.2.51 for the 2.0 mm squared with a diameter of 1.6 mm, the larger conductors, and in accordance with the table of 4.2.1.5 for the 0.5 mm squared with the diameter of 1.0 mm and the 1.25 mm squared with the diameter of 1.2 mm conductors. The installation shall not exceed the temperature ratings on terminations and equipment. So for the conductors, it shall be copper, aluminum, copper-clad aluminum, nickel or nickel-coated copper, or solid or stranded. So for the minimum conductor size, so makita din natin sa ampacity niya. So we have 0.75 mm squared, the diameter of 1.0 is a copper, nickel or nickel coated copper, and the 3.5 mm squared with a diameter of 2.0 mm is aluminum or copper clad aluminum. So for the equipment grounding conductor, so the type MC cable used to provide an equipment in grounding conductor. So for the insulation, so we have 1000 volts or less or over 1000 volts. Next, in Article 3.32, which is the mineral insulated metal sheet cable or the type MI. So the type MI, it is a factory assembly of one or more conductors insulated with the high compressed refractory minerals insulated in enclosed in a liquid tight and gas tight continuous copper or alloy steel sheet. So makita natin yung itsura ng ating type MI and ang kanyang components. So we can see the stainless metal shield, the magnesium oxide power insulation. So in terms naman sa uses permitted, so it is used for the service feeders and branch circuit, for power, lightning control, and signal circuit in dry, wet, or continuously moist location, in indoors or outdoors, and where exposed or concealed. So in terms naman sa uses not permitted, so in underground runs unless protected from physical damage which were necessary and were exposed to conditions that are destructive and corrosive to metallic sheet unless additional protection is provided. So in terms in ampacity, so it determined in the section of 3.20.2.6. And for the equipment grounding conductor, so where the outer sheet is made of copper, it shall provide an adequate path to serve as an equipment grounding conductors. Next, in Article 3.34, which is the non-metallic sheet cable, which is the type NM, NMC, and NMS. So for the definition of the metallic sheet cable, it is a factory assembly of two or more insulated conductors enclosed within an overall non-metallic jacket. So for the type NM, so insulated conductor enclosed within an overall non-metallic jacket. For type NMC, it is an insulated conductor enclosed within an overall corrosion-resistant non-metallic jacket. And for the last one, it is the type NMS, so insulated power or control conductors with signaling data and communication conductors within an overall non-metallic jacket. So we can see the picture, the right side of our slide, the non-metallic sheet cables. So for the uses permitted, so 1 and 2 family dwellings and their attached or detached garages and their storage buildings. Also in multi-family dwellings permitted to be of type 3, 4, and 5 construction. Cables shall be concealed with walls, floors, or ceilings that provide a thermal barrier of material. And cable trays in structure permitted to be type 3, 4, or 5 where the cable are identified for the use, and the type 1 and 2 construction were installed within the raceway permitted to be installed in type 1 and 2 construction. So for the uses not permitted, so that for the types NM, NMC, and NMS, so in any dwelling or structure not specifically permitted in the section 3.34.2.11 to 3 and 5. Also in exposed within a trap or suspended ceiling cavity in other than the 1 and 2 family in multi-family dwellings, and di rin siya ginagamit as a service entrance cable in storage battery room, in houseway or an elevator or escalators, embedded in poured cement, concrete, or aggregate, and also in hazardous location except where specifically permitted by other article in this code. So for the ampacity, so the ampacity be determined in accordance with the section of 3.10.2.6 is the allowable capacity shall not exceed that of 60 degrees Celsius rated conductor. So in terms of equipment, grounding conductor, so the cable shall have an insulated, covered, or per equipment grounding conductor. So we can see the violation in type NM, NMC, or in NMS. So we can see the picture on the right side ng ating slide. So hindi po natin siya combine yung ating mga wires inside the insulator. So ito po ay violation pagdating po sa splicing. So next, in Article 3.36, which is the power control tray cable or the type TC. So the type TC is a factory assembly of 2 or more insulated conductors with or without associated bare or covered grounding conductors under non-metallic jacket. So makikita natin yung kung ano yung itsura nating type TC. So you can see the jacket, the insulation, and the conductor. So in terms of uses permitted naman, so it used for power, lightning, control, and signal circuit in cable trays, including those with mechanically discontinuous segments up to 300 mm. It's also used in a raceway, in outdoor locations supported by a messenger wire, and where installed in wet location, it shall also be resistant to moisture and corrosive agents, and the direct buried with identified for such use. So in terms naman sa uses not permitted, so siya ginagamit in straw where it were exposed to physical damage, and its use were exposed to direct rays of the sun unless identified as the sunlight resistant. Next, in Article 3.38, so a service entrance cable, the type SE and USE. So the service entrance cable, it is a single conductor or multi-conductor assembly provided with or without an overall covering, in primarily used for services and of the following types. So for the type SE, so the SE cables have a flame retardant moisture resistant covering, and for the type USE or the underground service entrance, the SE cable identified for underground use have a moisture resistant covering but not required to have a flame retardant covering. So in terms of uses permitted, so the service entrance, conductors, and branch circuit or feeders. So in uses not permitted naman, so for the service entrance cable or for the SE, so we're subject to physical damage unless protected in accordance with the section of 2.30.4.11 B and the underground with or without raceway. So for exterior branch circuit and feeder wiring, unless the installation complies with the provisions of Part 2.25.1 and it's supported in accordance with the section of 3.34.2.21. So sa uses not permitted naman in USE or the underground service cable, so it is not used in interior wirings for above ground installation except where used cable emerge from the ground, and for the trail cable unless it is a multi-conductor cable. So for the construction, so cable single conductor, the type USE construction recognized for underground use shall be permitted to have a bare copper conductor cabled with the assembly and to have permitted to have a bare copper concentric conductor applied. In Article 3.40, which is the underground feeder and branch circuit cable or the type UF. So the type UF, it is a factory assembly of one or more inserted conductors with an integral or an overall covering of non-metallic materials suitable for direct burial in the earth. So use is permitted. So for the use permitted for use underground, including direct burial in the earth for requirements, and a single conductor cables for wiring in wet, dry, or corrosive location under the recognized wiring methods of this code. So used for installed as non-metallic sheet cable, and for the solar photovoltaic system, so in system in accordance with section 6.90.4.1, and a single conductor cable as the non-heating leads for heating cable as provided in section 4.24.5.10. So in terms of uses not permitted in type UF, So, di siya ginagamit as service entrance cable in commercial garages, in theaters, in similar location, in motion picture studios, and in storage battery rooms. So next in Article 3.42, which is the intermediate metal conduit or the type IMC. So intermediate metal conduit, it is a steel threadable raceway of circular cross-section designed for the physical protection and routing of conductors and cable and for use as an equipment grounding conductor. So makita natin dito yung type ng ating IMC at yung iba-ibang klase ng IMC. Next is for the size. So for the size of our type IMC, so it is a minimum IMC. For the minimum IMC shall metric than designator at 16 with a trade size of 1/2 shall not be used. And for the maximum, so IMC larger than metric designator at 100T or the trade size number 4 shall not be used. So for the grounding, so IMC shall be permitted as equipment for grounding conductor. And for the construction, so IMC shall be made of steel with protective coatings and stainless steel. Next in 3.44, which is the rigid metal conduit or the type RMC. So for the definition, RMC is a threadable raceway of circular cross-section designed for the physical protection and routing of conductors and cable and for the use as an equipment grounding conductor when installed with an integral or associated coupling and appropriate fittings. So for the size of our type RMC, for the minimum, so RMC smaller than the metric designator 16, the trade size of 1/2 shall not be used. Exception for enclosing the lids of motors as permitted in section 4.13.5b. And for the maximum, RMC is larger than metric designator at 155, trade size 6, so shall not be used. And for the listing of requirements, so RMC, factor elbows, couplings, and associated fittings shall be listed. So here's also the table of 3.44.2.21b2. So it is a support for rigid metal conduit. So it shows the conduit size and the maximum distance between the rigid metal conduit support. Next in Article 3.48, which is the flexible metal conduit or the type FMC. So for definition, FMC is a raceway of circular cross section made of helically wound form interlocked metal strip. So makikita natin sa right side ng ating slide ng ating type FC or the flexible metal conduit. So in terms naman sa uses permitted, so FMC shall be permitted to be used in exposed and concealed locations. So in terms of uses not permitted naman, so hindi siya pwede sa wet location, in storage battery rooms, in underground, or embedded in poured concrete. So in terms of grounding, so FMC shall be permitted to be used as an equipment grounding conductor when installed in accordance with the section of 2.50.7.5b. So here's are the table of our maximum number of insulated conductors in metric decimeter 12, which is the size of 3/8. So it is a flexible conduit or the type FMC. So it shows the size and the types and the fittings inside and outside of the conduit. Next is for the article 3.50. So it is a liquid type flexible metal conduit or the type LFNC. So for the type LFNC, it is a raceway of circular cross-section having an outer liquid type, non-metallic sunlight resistance, jacket over an inner flexible metal core with associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electric conductors. So makita natin yung ating type o yung itsura ng ating type LFNC sa ating picture at the right side of our slide. So for the size ng ating LFNC, so for the minimum, so the LNC smaller than metric decimeter 16, the trade size 1/2, so shall not be used. And for the exception of the metric decimeter 12, the trade size of 3/8 shall be permitted as covering in the section of 3.48.2.11a. And for the maximum, so the maximum size of LFNC shall a metric decimeter at 103 or the size trade size number 4. So for uses permitted, so where condition of installation, operation, or maintenance require flexibility or protection from liquids, vapor, or solids. For uses not permitted naman, so in combination of ambient and conductor temperature produce an operating temperature in excess of that for which the material is approved. So for grounding, so where flexibility is not required after installation, the LFNC shall be permitted to be used as an equipment grounding conductor. So that's all. Thank you.